Okay, we're recording. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining me again on a Saturday morning. Thanks, Steyn, for waking up early. um, and yeah, thank you for taking out the time to talk through the finals case. So this one was the grand finale called the Mzansi Hotel Group. Um, and it was an interesting case. I've said from the very beginning that I wanted to do a case like this because there's not enough cases like these, and I'm a massive fan of Power Query, and I feel like to call yourself an Excel specialist or an Excel expert, you have to have a bit of Power Query in your tool belt as well, because there are always use cases for it, and I've been using it more and more. So with dynamic arrays and the new lambdas and lets and Power Query, I tend to not use VBA at all anymore. I maybe use it for very, very bespoke things where I used to use it a lot more in the past. So we'll talk about that method, but let's just maybe cover what the case looks like. So, like I said, it's called the Mzansi Hotel Group, and the idea is that we're looking at the hotel's occupancy numbers for 2023. The big challenge here was it was disaggregated per room per hotel over the year. So every hotel room had its own occupancy numbers, and it wasn't structured in a nice way. It was structured more in a human way, but less in a computer way, and we'll talk about that. So basically, we've got a list of the hotels. So firstly, we have the hotels list, and that's just basically name, number, name, province. Then we've got the rooms list, and there we've got some gaps in the data, but luckily not gaps in the numbering. That was a gift. And then there's the room code and the room type and the cost and the cost. So just the cost per night in peak time and then the cost in normal. I wanted to actually give another calendar where we had like peak times during the year, so holiday periods and like long weekends and stuff, but then decided against that because I realized that it's going to take too much time. So I just made peak Saturdays and Friday nights and Saturday nights. And then another gift was the calendar. So you could have easily set up this calendar yourself, but if you didn't do the calendar, then you would have had to do a difficult M query code to actually include the actual dates into the week and weekday. So this was another gift. And then we have each hotel's occupancy numbers. So it starts with sort of the heading, the hotel name, the room code, the just sort of a header or a title, and then we have the number of rooms available. So that was critical information. And then we have per week, giving you the dates from the Sunday to the Saturday, each of those rooms' occupation. So occupancy. So in other words, 20 rooms out of the 25 was filled on Monday, the 2nd of January, for instance. So that was for each hotel. So we had all this for all the hotels, and I know that it seems daunting, but this is what Power Query thrives on. So I don't know, but maybe before we jump into the Power Query, do you guys want to add anything? Maybe how you felt, or how did you attempt it, or do we just jump into it?
Renier, I like the case. I mean, as you say, slightly different to what we typically see in these Excel esports things, but I fully agree with you about, this is an incredibly powerful part of Excel, and something that, people are maybe a bit slower on in terms of upskilling themselves. And I think probably, to all of our detriment, because Power Query, as you say, is incredibly powerful, particularly when it comes to handling unstructured data in large quantities and automating the cleaning up of that data. And so this is this was a really, really good example of how powerful this can be, and actually how quickly you can take unstructured data and convert it into a structured data set, and then run analysis and things on. This is a really great example of how that can be done. So yeah, I think it's a great addition to the sort of case material universe that we've got.
Thanks. Talking about large amounts, I actually have a use case where I downloaded all of my bank statements from the beginning from Investec, and all of them these days. In the past, you could have downloaded everything in CSV, but now it sort of limits you to a specific period. But you can still download all the PDFs in bulk. And I use Power Query to extract all of those into Excel for me as a combined list of transactions from the PDFs. So in the end, Power Query is strong enough, or it's sort of as an ETL tool. It's actually super powerful. But yeah, let's not talk too much about that. Let's maybe jump in. Steyn, did you want to add anything?
No, nothing to add.
Okay,
but yeah,
cool.
I agree. Power Query is an important tool to learn, and it's something that I need to upskill myself more in.
Cool. So I'm just going to. So I've got the queries and connections running already. So I essentially have all of these already done. But I'm going to run through my methodology again. And yeah, let's quickly do that, right? So I mean, I told the guys I think you can do it in like 5 to 10 minutes if you know Power Query. So I'm going to talk in between, but we can keep track of the time. Now it's 12 past, or let's say 13 past 8. So you can go and say get from file. You can even get from folder. So you can combine multiple Excels if you wanted to. And if I go, I'm just going to pull in from the clean data. So if I go there, I've got a list of all the sheets, but now I want a lot of these combined. So a trick that not a lot of people know, and it's hidden, is that you can right click on that actual file and go transform data. And what that does is it pulls in all of the information for you. It pulls in all of the elements, so all the tables and all the sheets. So we can see we've got two calendars. We've got a table calendar and we've got a normal sheet calendar. In this case, it was structured enough that it doesn't matter. But what I could do is let me just group these. I'm just going to group them as old and hide them for now. But so what I could do is I could call this all data. Okay. And sorry, I did call it all data already. Let's call it all data too. So I've got all data, and now I want to extract separate listings, right? So I want a hotels list, I want a rooms list, I want a calendar, and I want a combined occupancy across all of them. So what I do from this is actually create what we call references. So a duplicate would pull in the source again, but a reference would take a reference from the point where this one ended up, if that makes sense. Okay. So what that means is I can, for instance, go and say, let's remove anything that's a table. So I'm just going to filter out the tables so that I'm just left with sheets. Okay. So now that's step 1 and 2. If I do a reference of that, I basically have from the source referring to all data to where it ended up. So it doesn't pull the Excel sheet in twice. So that's the difference between a reference and a duplicate. So let's fix up the hotel list. So I'm going to call it hotels. Did do that already? Damn it. Hotels 2. So
and then
you
clearly think the same way as you did a couple of weeks ago.
I did. So I'm just going to say filter for me everything that equals hotel list in this case. Now I just need the data. So I'm just going to right click on this one and say remove other columns so that I'm just left with the data. And then I go expand, and I don't want to use the original column name as a prefix. I never use that. Okay. So that brings back all my data for my hotels list, and then I just need to go use first row as headers. So Power Query's automatically changed the type for me. These are numbers. I'm happy with that. Name, province, happy. So that's hotels. Then I go back to all data. Now I want rooms. I go and I reference that again. I'm going to bring back my rooms. Really? I thought I used a different name. Anyways, rooms. And I'm going to go equals rooms. And again, right click on that, remove the other columns, expand the data, and okay. So now we've got the rooms. And if so now I can just use the first row as headers again to fix up the headers. And then I want to potentially fill down these hotel numbers. So I can just go and transform and then go fill down. So that would have taken you about I don't know how many, let's say 10 key presses on Excel, but it's like 2 clicks on Power Query, which is amazing, right? So we've got numbers already sorted out. We've got name, room type. We didn't really need the name here, so that's fine. We could have removed it, but it's fine. Let's leave it. And I've got the costs in numerical format already, so the change type worked like it should. And in actual fact, this data is not as unstructured as it seems, right? So reference again, and now we want the calendar, so I'm just going to call it cal. I'm sure I didn't use that name. So calendar, and then I'm going to go equals where it equals calendar. Again, I'm just going to remove the other columns, and I'm going to expand the data, and then I'm going to use the first row as headers, and then that's already a date. That's weekday. Happy with that. Then the final step, I think it's the final step, so let's just reference it again. So we've got case. Okay, case is just the case itself. So it's just the room numbers that remains. Okay, so now I'm just going to go and filter, and I'm just going to remove the other ones. There's lots of ways to do this, but let me just remove the other ones so that I have all the hotel data back. Now I want to keep these numbers because that's my reference. Okay, which is something that I would have had to bring in if I kept it in Excel. So I'm just going to remove those columns and just keep with the name and the data. Okay. Then I'm going to expand, and I'm going to now I need to extract the information that's necessary. So I've realized that the rooms available I need as well. So I'm just going to go back. We'll just call this. Let's just call this OCC for now, for occupancy. And then I'm going to reference this again just to show how I would extract the rooms information as well. Also, just going to filter those out because I want it for each hotel room. And I'm going to select those 2 columns, remove the other columns, expand the data, and okay. And then I just want the rooms available, so I'm just going to right click on that, and I'm going to say filter for me where it equals rooms available. Then I've got all the hotel name numbers and rooms available. I only need this column and that column, so I'm just going to remove the other columns. So that's the number of rooms available, and that's the hotel name. And now I can split the column to split it up. I'm going to split it by number of characters. I'm going to split it up by 2 characters. And that's going to give me the hotel number. So I'm just going to go number, and I'm going to say room type. No, room code. That's what we called it. Okay, and then that is rooms available. Okay, so now I've got room avail as a data set as well. And then I'm just going to go back to occupancy. And then I'm going to, so I just want everything that has a number here, right? So I could go and say everything that's not null should be kept. So I can click on this little drop down and say remove empty. And that will remove all the nulls and blanks from my data set. So it just leaves me with anything that has sort of transactional data in that column. So there's lots of ways to do this, but that's my go-to method. And then I can actually promote my headers now as well, because I can see that they are at the top. So I'm just going to say use first row as headers. This one has the wrong name now, but I also want to split this column by number of characters. So I'm going to say 2 characters. And again, this is hotel number, and this is room code. That's week number, that's dates. Now, I'm soon not going to need the dates, but I'm just going to keep the dates there to just make sure that my dates align correctly. But basically, I'm now almost ready. If I scroll down, I can still see that I've got the other headers as well. So I'm just going to remove that by saying filter everything that does not equal week number there, and it will filter out all the headings. Okay. Then comes the big trick. The big use case for Power Query is the fact that I can now go and say unpivot this. So I select everything there, and I'm going to say unpivot. And it basically brings my previous headings across to an attribute. So that becomes my weekday. And this becomes my value or my occupancy or let's just call it rooms. Let's just take it occupied. So
I feel like that unpivot function needs a drum roll before you do it, because it's
it's amazing.
If you've tried to do something like that just in Excel before,
it's terrible.
Being able to do that with one click in Power Query is like mind blowing, right?
It is.
It's one of my favorite things in Power Query.
And I mean, even if you know a bit of SQL, it's actually difficult to unpivot and pivot in SQL, right? It's actually you have to like learn how to use the syntax there. But with Power Query, it's a click. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So now I can just combine all my data, and in Power Query we call it merge. So you've got the same principles as in something like a SQL or whatever. You've got a join and you've got a union. In Power Query, it's called merge and append. So append is just a union, so you just put them underneath each other, and a merge is sort of next to each other. So what we're doing is we're bringing the other columns across, because now I want the calendar information. So I'm just going to say merge queries. So I'm just going to add to this one. In Power Pivot, I don't need to do this, right? Because Power Pivot gives me the ability to actually join them on keys. So if I'm just using pivot tables, I could just go with this information as it is, and I can bring across all the other fields. So I can already actually solve my problem, solve the whole question with it structured just like this. But for formula-based workings, I would add the other columns. So it depends on your use case. If you're just using Power Pivot, you're just doing pivot tables, this is enough. Then you can bring across all the other fields as available fields, as if it is one set. Once you've joined the fields, or you've said like this one connects to the other one with a hotel number and room code, for instance, because those are your keys, right? So I'm just going to bring across the calendar. I've got week number and I've got week number, and I've got weekday and I've got weekday. Okay, tells me I've got 100% match, and I go okay. Brings across another table. I expand. And I just want to bring back the date, because I just need the dates. Okay, so there's my date. Okay, so now I can see 1 to 7 runs from 1 to 7. So I'm happy. Means I can drop this one. Boom, gone. Okay, so now I've got dates, I've got weekdays, I've got week number, I've got occupancy numbers. Now, okay, so I've brought in my calendar. Now I want to bring.
I'm just going to jump in here. Like,
yeah.
I'm kicking myself at the moment because I probably didn't work through the data that was given to us well enough when I was setting up the case on my side, because I didn't realize the calendar table was going to be so helpful in this. I recalculated those dates. Oh my goodness, and like complete manual process to redo that. But flip, so simple when you've got the calendar table.
Yeah, so like I said, you could have set up the calendar table yourself quickly as well with the sequence, right? Sorry. With the sequence and the text formula, you could have brought back the Sunday, Monday stuff as well. Just give me a sec.
Yes, I was Steyn, I know you didn't do a Power Query approach for this, but on my side, I got to the hotel data that Renier had, and then had that column that had the start of the week to the end of the week, split those out into 2 columns, and then had to try and figure out a formula to figure out if it was a Sunday, take the start date plus 0. If it is a Monday, take the start date plus 1. Tuesday, start date plus 2, and then recreate the dates for the week, and then copy all that. Let that. Luckily, that ran down there in the column. But to come up with that logic, it took me ages to sort of figure that out in my head. And actually, the calendar table made such a difference. And I know that if you do any sort of data manipulation analysis with Power Query, Power Pivot, Power BI, or any, well, I mean, all the guys that are really big into data will know that as soon as you've got dates, you want to have a dedicated calendar table where you've got all of your date attributes in one table, financial year, week number, month number, month name, whatever. If you've got a dedicated calendar table, then you don't have to worry about doing all of those calculations in your massive data set. And Renier, one part of thinking I'll add to your, do you keep them as separate queries and link them together with relationships for analysis, or do you bring data into the data set? And I think for the guys who are very traditional Excel formula users, your gut instinct is to pull things into one massive data set. So that you've got one big VLOOKUP table. That's the old thinking. You've got one massive VLOOKUP table. But the other benefit of keeping tables with sort of core attributes separate is if you've got a data set of 1 million rows and you've got this rooms list, right, which is like 20 rows, and you want to try and bring that into, you want to merge those two data sets. If you do that and you then output the data as actual data into a table on your spreadsheet, you basically add a column of 1 million rows for all of the room attributes you're bringing in, as opposed to having one little table that's got 20 columns in it, and that Excel can just go and look up for you. So from a file size and file efficiency perspective, keeping those tables separate and linking them with relationships in Power Pivot is way more efficient.
Yes, I agree. Completely agree. So for me, when you're working under pressure within 30 minutes, luckily this is only 12,000 rows. I think you can do it like this. And I'm going to show this method because it's the simplest method. But I agree. The Power Pivot method is definitely the far better method. The only reason I did it this way was because I wanted to show how to do the formulas afterwards. Because you could have solved once you've rebuilt this data set, you can solve it with pivot tables alone. Everything, I believe. Okay. So what I just wanted to also say is your method. You could have split these dates by delimiter, and you could have put space dash space as the delimiter in Power Query as well, because it allows for multiple delimiters as well. And then what you could have done is you could have done something called a list.generate. It's a formula within MCode, and go study it up. It is absolutely mind-blowingly powerful, but very difficult. It's got a bit of a difficult to understand syntax, but it's absolutely amazing what you can do with list.generate. I've done some really powerful things in Power Query with it. But anyways, so you didn't have to follow the other logic, but again, I agree, create a calendar table. But in Power Query, you don't need all those attributes, because I'm going to show you something else that's magical right now. I'll show that soon. Or yeah, let's not show it now. Oh, maybe let's do it. So I know that I'm going to need a month, and I know that I'm going to need a quarter, because I've read. Let's say I've been a good student and I've read through the case properly. Because we did give them 45 minutes for this, so that they have a bit more time to actually read through the case and stuff as well. So I gave them 45 minutes for this case. But anyways, we could go and say add column, and then you can go column from examples, but you could do like conditional columns and a custom column as well. Then you code it yourself, depending on how confident you are. But you can go column from examples, and you can go just type their month, right? And there you've got all your different sort of month formulas there. So if you want to bring back the month as a month name, I can bring it back like that, or just month from date, or like week of month from date. So you've got all those formulas you could just go okay, and it's got all the month data there. Okay, so that you could do. You can also, I think that was the way that it needed month. I can't remember if we was it
No,
text month.
Yes, we had this text month. It's one of the
It's
questions. is
the
text.
full name of
Yes,
the
yes.
month. Okay, so let's remove that month column then, or let's just remove those steps, and let's go select the date again. I'm going to say column from examples. Now I'm just going to type there. I can see it's January, so I just go January, and then I can also do that, right? So I can sort of tell it what I want, and it automatically goes January, February, March. And I want quarter numbers as well, so I'm just going to say there, quarter from examples, and I'm going to say quarter. So there, quarter of year from date. That's the one I want, okay? And I'll go okay, and it's got quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. So how long would that have taken to write as a sort of a code or a formula? But that's a quick way for me to add month, name, quarter, whatever else I needed. So I didn't even need weekday because I could derive weekday from here. So if I go there and I go again column from examples and I go weekday, there's weekday already in my sort of formula, so or in my function. So that means because you have this, you don't need the whole calendar table. You just need a list of dates in essence. So that's just a fun thing to add.
I did not know that was possible. That's an awesome tip. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, so now I'm just going to bring in room availability. So again, same method applies. I just go merge queries. I'm going to bring in rooms avail. And I'm going to say, there's my hotel number, room code. That's all I need to sort of join them up. Perfect join, and I can go okay. So that brings across, I just want that. That brings across my occupancy against my room availability. So now I've got an easy way to calculate my occupancy per day. Okay. So then next one, merge. Merge. Why are you not merging? Here we go. So we did the calendar, we did the room availability. So now we bring across the rooms too. So that's basically again hotel number. I'm just holding my control key, my room code. Those are all I needed. Okay. And in this case, I just want to bring back the last 3 columns because this name is also in my hotel list. So it really doesn't matter where I bring it from. That's why I said we didn't need the name there. So I'm just going to need room type, cost peak, cost normal. And what I'll do now is I'll basically, for my own sanity, I'll keep things that are similar together, just for like data structure purposes. So where I have my room code, I'll add my room type. And sometimes I want to use the A, sometimes I want to use the name standard or premium. So I've got both now. And then next up we'll go merge. And we'll go hotels too. I think then we've got everything. So now again, I'm just doing hotel number. That's all I needed. So now I can bring in name and province. And that's it. So now I can bring that across to where it makes sense for me. There. So I've got number, name, province, room code, room type. The cost column shouldn't have gone across. I would have kept them to the right. So then I've got, but anyways, it doesn't really matter what the order is. But my data is pretty much ready to go now, right? So now I can go close and load, and I can go close and load 2 as well. Doesn't really matter. Let's just go close and load 2, and I'm just going to say create a connection. If I want to pull it into Power Pivot, I'm going to add it to the data model. Okay, I'm not going to do that now. Well, let's do it. So now all my queries are running, and it's going to pull across all the information. I basically have 12376 sorry, 12,376 rows. But now I can use this information in pivot tables, or I can use it in formulas. And I've pretty much done almost everything I needed to do. I think the only thing I did in the so the only stuff I added later on from my side, this was the initial way how I did it, was to sort of do a little formula to say if it's a Friday, then if it's a Friday or a Saturday, make it a 1, otherwise make it a 0, so just to determine where peak is. And there's other ways to do that, but the other thing is I also added just a formula to say, so this becomes a table, which is nice, so it becomes a named reference. It becomes a complete named reference. And now I could just add more formulas to the side. And if I go and append my query, the formulas or the functions on the side of my table will move with my appended query. It won't overwrite. So it's magical. It works really nicely. But basically, now I'm just saying if it's peak, then give me the peak cost. If it's not, give me the normal cost. So that just brings across if it is a Saturday in this case. So it's a Saturday, it's peak, and therefore we're using the cost peak and not the cost normal. And that's why it's 8044 instead of 4640. And then I also just added a formula to say occupancy times cost normal for the normal revenue, and then occupancy times the cost that I just calculated there for the full revenue. So that's all data formatting and structure that you needed. From here, you could answer all the questions with a pivot table and with different versions of a pivot table, or you could do it with a formula as well. So yeah, so this is a massive amount of work if you compare it to like Excel terms that we could do with Power Query relatively quickly and easy. And as you saw, it's a one click. So if you know what you're doing, I really think you can do this in 5 to 10 minutes. If you're not talking in between and if you're not coughing in between. But basically everything I did from here, I could have done with the pivot table as well. And I think in the initial, when I designed it, I was testing all my answers with pivot tables, because you can now easily do it with pivot tables. But I am going to show how I did it with formulas, because I wanted to do it all formula driven as well. So I'll get to the bonus questions at the end. But basically, the first question is asking for Hotel 1, room code A, and this was a gift to the people that didn't know how to use Power Query, because you just needed to use one sheet for this, right? So I also did it in that fashion. So from all the data, if I wanted to actually just bring back Hotel 1 and room code A, it would have become a sort of round average ifs, and I would have had to like go to the full data and say only bring back where hotel number is 1 and where room code is A. But in this case, because I've got 1A over there, I just referred to that range of data, so just this range of data. And all I'm doing is I'm saying for this week, so that week becomes my so the column reference for, let's just see what I did there. Yeah, so the G38 just becomes the row reference, for that index. I bring back the full row and give me the average of that rounded to 2 decimals, which would give me my answer. So I don't know if you guys did it in a different way or a more elegant way.
I've got the same round average, but I referenced the full data set. And so I used the filter function, took the filter function to take the hotel value column, and then just checked where the week number tied up to the week that's in column G, and the hotel number I just hard coded as 01A from my table, because that was the hotel we were looking at. So same principle, but I referenced the full data set rather than the sheet.
Yeah, so what you could have done is an average ifs, but the problem with an average ifs is if your data isn't in one column, an average ifs doesn't work like it should. And there's a video that I did on that a while ago on I think it was a Lambda video on my personal YouTube channel, where I explained how to do like proper average ifs with, I can't remember even because it's been so long, but yeah, average ifs could do similar, but I like the fact that you use the filter, because that's also a nice powerful dynamic array, and I actually use that in one of my other solutions that I'll show a bit later as well. But yeah, so then level 2 was only for Limpopo hotels. And the question was, what is the total occupancy? So the sum of rooms filled, of the number of rooms filled for the Limpopo hotels for the following dates. So there, if your data is properly set up, it's just a sum if, or a sum ifs in this case. So all I'm saying is sum for me all the occupancy numbers. Let me just do this. So I just said sum for me all the occupancy numbers for where the province is Limpopo, and where the date is that date. So I just wanted to explain, this could look daunting to some people, but it's actually a lot more easy to work with, because you don't have to lock your references. You can refer to it. If you remember your data set, you could just go and say sum ifs, and you could say I want to sum occupancy and open bracket, and then say, okay, what do I want to sum? I want to sum, let's say, revenue. Okay. Then what's my criteria? I want to sum where, let's say, the hotel. So I'm going to go occupancy again to reference the table, and then say I want where the hotel name equals. So I'm going to go comma to do the criteria. So I'll just go Porcupine Ridge. It's not splitting across now. So, but anyways, so it's Porcupine Ridge, and then you could go criteria 2, and you could say occupancy, and then open bracket, and then date. So you don't have to like go to the sheet every time and like select the column and stuff. You could just type it like this, and it's not a difficult syntax to remember. So you could go occupancy date, that one, for instance, close bracket, and there's your sum. So that's my total revenue for Porcupine Ridge for the 31st of August. It's not really difficult. Once you start playing with it, it's not difficult to play with.
Renier, the thing that I like to sort of tell guys when I teach a bit of Power Query is that and I mean this is less about Power Query and more just about table references, right? Using tables for data sets, defined Excel tables, like a control T table. And if you've got, especially if you've got only one or two big tables, you only need to remember the names of those tables, and you can name them intelligently, right? So name them something that makes sense. And then the really nice part is, like you would have seen on your screen, if you type in equals occupancy, open square bracket, Excel gives you a tooltip list of all your column names. So you don't even have to remember them necessarily. You can scroll down and double click and whatever. So, having a defined table with structured table references makes the ability to write formulas super, super easy, and also super human friendly, right? You can understand what's going on.
No. So what you're referring to is when you go like that, you select your table and you go Control T. You can say, yes, my data has headers. There I've got a table now, and when I go to the table design view, I can give it a name. So I'm just going to say, for instance, my hotels, because I've got something called hotels and hotels list and everything already. So there's my hotels. And then once I've done that, I can now do formulas, and I can go equals hotels, my hotels, and open bracket, and then I can say I want just the name. Okay. Close bracket. So there's all my names of my hotels. How wonderful is that, right? So now I could sort my hotels. I've got them sorted alphabetically. Okay. So, and I mean, you can go a lot further. You could go and say, bring back like my hotels and their provinces, hotel names and provinces. So you could go and like do a reference, there's like a double block bracket reference as well, where you could bring back specific fields from that as well. Or I could have used HStack, or HStack in this case, to stack them as well, because these become this becomes a dynamic reference now, a dynamic range. So yeah, just magical. Love tables. I'm also a big fan. So all right. So that was level 2 and a bit of other things as well. But yeah, so what was the average occupancy number of rooms filled out of the total available rounded to a whole percentage for the following provinces and months? So again, not much different, not much more difficult. And I just want to show how I structured it for myself, just so that I can easily see if I'm comparing the right things. I literally just built a sum ifs, and I said sum for me the occupancy and divide it by the room count, essentially. And all I'm doing is I'm saying sum ifs, if the province is that, and if the month name is that. Again, like I said, if you wanted to do it quickly and easily, a pivot table would have also done it for you easily. But when it comes to a pivot table, to extract the information dynamically is might take you a bit longer. But with a pivot table, you could actually check your answers easily. So that was how I did level 3. You've got a naughty smile there, Jason. Did you do it differently or what? Did I over-engineer it or what?
No, you didn't at all. It's a great solution with the formulas, and to your point, once you've got this massive data set, that's sort of not a sort of a data analyst way of thinking where you've got lots of different tables that need relationships and things. You've just got one big data set. Then formulas like this are super simple, and it's the way that we all think, right? I was laughing, sort of smiling, because I solved this. Actually, I solved most of the cases with pivot tables, and I was looking at my formula and thinking, if someone sees this formula, they're going to think, oh my goodness, that is ridiculously complex to write, because it uses the get pivot data formula. But I didn't write the formula right. I just clicked on the button, clicked on the cell in the sheet where the pivot table was. But the amazing thing, and perhaps I'll show it.
Yeah, welcome.
I don't know if I should jump in now. Let me share my screen quickly. The amazing thing with the get pivot data, like I don't know, for me, get pivot data is a pretty scary formula to start with. Like, how do you write it? Have you seen it before? Yes or no? I don't know. But I mean, if you look at this formula here, I mean, it looks pretty monstrous. Oh, that doesn't help. Is it this one? No. Okay. I don't know why it's not showing me the formula text. Anyway.
Well, it's because it just needs a wrap or an unwrap. Yeah. So or just do a merge across a big range.
A really big range.
There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, big formula. But the point is, or the setup for my solution is, I just did pivot tables for each of the answers. So what are we doing here? We're doing occupancy. We're doing occupancy, but I need a province and I need a month, right? So I've set up a pivot table here that's got the months, it's got the provinces, and then it's got the occupancy sort of numbers, right? And so all I did was I took the got a Q3. Let's just say just click somewhere in the pivot table. It really doesn't matter. Click somewhere. Then Excel's generated this get pivot data formula for me. Okay.
Yeah.
And all that I did then was I stepped into this formula. Now this is just giving me the number of rooms, but you would then divide by the rooms available. But this get pivot data formula can actually become dynamic, right? So I need the month and I need the province. So I can see here the actual month, here March. So instead of letting Excel sort of define that March date, I just inserted my own text here. And I think I did left open bracket of this, comma 3, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I mustn't use inverted commas there. And so I basically stripped out that March, put in a formula to tell me what the value is, And now I've done this dynamically instead of referring to March necessarily, and it's pulling me the same thing. And then do the same for the province. Instead of Limpopo, I'm just going to, put in 2 inverted commas, but strip in there the province for myself. And so now I've got the Western Cape for September instead of Limpopo for March, and copy that down. And now I've got a dynamic get pivot data formula, which pulls. So I didn't go and calculate the occupancy percentages and things like that in the pivot tables, which you can also do.
I could have.
And you can get quite complex with measures and things like that in Power Pivot. But here I'm just saying, okay, I need a big pivot table that's got occupancy, and I then had total rooms so that I could divide the two, so that I could get the percentage. But the principle applies. And I need months and I need provinces as my two sort of 2D reference. And now I've got a data set of all those options. And again, I didn't write this get pivot data formula. I wouldn't be able to write this get pivot data formula by myself on the first go. But if I click in the pivot table, Excel generates this get pivot data formula for me, and I just add the dynamic month reference and hotel reference or province reference and copy that down, and that then is a dynamic solution to the answer. Then you just need multiple pivot tables for each of the questions, basically. But I just wanted to show that because when I looked at my formula, I thought, flip, this is this over here looks like a bit of a monster, but it's really just that first part that I showed now divided by the second reference, which is the total rooms.
Yeah, love it.
And then that was it. And so it looks complicated, but I didn't write it. Excel wrote it for me.
Yeah, and you could easily simplify that by putting in line breaks and stuff as well if you want to make it more readable. Like it's actually something that it's not just referencing everything. It is actually nice. Sorry, I just need to quickly open the gate there. So it's actually proper wording, so you can actually read it and understand it. So there's a really good video on Get Pivot Data, I think by either by Mr. Excel, Bill Jelen, or by who's the other guy? I get an email from him every week, but I'll try and find it and share it or put a link to it. But there's a really good explanation video on Get Pivot Data and how powerful it actually is and how usable it actually is. But for me, for most of what I do, I've switched off Get Pivot Data. I've deactivated it in my settings. Like I don't that exists in a different world for me. So I do perfectly fine without it. But anyways, let's just get through the final questions. So level 4 and 5 is actually the same question. It's the exact same logic. The level 4 one is just the cost normal rate, so you could have just used the cost normal column, and and then the level 5 is just the normal revenue. So that applies where Fridays and Saturdays are considered peak. So that's the only difference between the two formulas for me. Is with this one I used occupancy revenue, and with this one I used occupancy normal revenue. So I just used the normal rate, cost normal rate. But in essence, all I did there was the sum ifs, and I just used the name, the hotel name, and the room type. And so I think the difficulty here was if you didn't have this, you would have had to look this up. And if you didn't have the revenue calculated in your table because you didn't have the power of the table from the Power Query, it would have been quite difficult. So this was actually very simple. Level 4 and 5. Level 5 had to change because I was a bit stupid. I initially had just the hotels, but Gareth in the finals actually showed me that I've got duplicates in this list because we only have 17 hotels, but we've got 30 cases, which was a rookie mistake by me. So I just added the room types as well. So now we've got no duplicates anymore. Didn't even think to check that. I think none of us picked that up. But yeah, anything that you guys want to add for level 4 and 5?
The only thing I'll say, Renier, is if you look at those formulas that you've got, they are super simple formulas for 4 and 5. That's like basic Excel formulas, right? It's a sum if it's a sum. It's basically just a simple sum if, right? And so going back to your intro for the case, the point here is that the setting up the data at the start can be incredibly powerful, and particularly when you've got unstructured data, to put it into a structured data set with all the columns that you're going to need and whatever, allows you to do really, really simple formulas to pull analysis out. And if you I guess, to sort of flip that over, if you'd given the participants that output data set to start with as just one big data table, people would have been able to answer this question in 5 minutes, the whole thing. Because it's super simple from an Excel logic perspective. And so the learning here is setting up the data using Power Query, which I think was really great.
Yeah, and I think it opens up your mind to a lot of things, because sometimes we tend to want to do things in Excel the difficult way, but you could just use a bit of Power Query and a pivot, and you could have your answer quickly. And any analyst that's had to like answer a question in a meeting while people are looking at you and they ask you a question, and you have to like quickly work with data that's unstructured. If you don't have Python skills and Jupyter notebooks and pandas, to quickly like write a little, do me a plot graph or anything, something like that, right? Then you've had to sort of do a pivot table quickly, and if your data is not structured properly, your pivot table is just going to be painful, and you're not going to get the right answers, and you're going to doubt your answers, etc. That's why it's so powerful to actually unpivot your data properly, fix your data. And I've done it so many times, and because I've had to solve this problem so many times, I wanted to actually challenge people to see the power and to actually realize how easy it actually is. So for the bonus questions,
before we get to the bonus question, I just want to show you how I approached it, because I didn't know it was easy to do it in Power Query.
Yeah, so Steyn went and he re-engineered it. He almost wrote Excel again in 45 minutes.
Yeah. So I didn't know how easy it was to do in Power Query, so I used the indirect formula. So I created the sheets, and then, or the room type, and then the hotel number, and then the lines. So I only pulled from line 6, and then the hotel I pulled from a different value. And so I then was able to consolidate all the sheets to this single one, but here we still have the data as in the weekly there. And then to get it into an entire list, I had to do a sequence, and then I used the mod formula to get a column number and a row formula, and then using index I was able to extract the information into a single list. So it was possible, but it's a bit more complex than the way Power Query allows it. So
amazing,
very different to clicking unpivot. Yes. And let's not mess around here. Not many people could have built this in time, like Steyn did. So
no, not many people would be able to. Like, it's amazing, Steyn. But yeah, that probably took you 30 minutes just to set that up, eh? But yeah, that's very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. But I like do it in Power Query. It was just that first option where you consolidated I thought you had to write a dynamic formula to concat all the sheets or something. I didn't know you could just right click on the file name and say transform data, and then it does it automatically for you.
Yeah. So another way, another thing that could have worked easily is there are other methods. There are other methods to combine the data, but I like that method because it's actually simple. But there are other ways to combine sheets, multiple workbooks and multiple sheets in the same folder. So it's super powerful. Like, once you start really like going down that rabbit hole, it's deep. And we haven't even touched M code yet. So like you can actually write code, and it becomes then it opens up a whole another world. And that's not even DAX. That's M code, which is actually simpler than DAX. It's actually more understandable. But anyways, to quickly
just Steyn, what I was going to show you is I also didn't I also didn't sort of think about just picking up the whole workbook and then unselecting the sheets that I didn't want. So all I did at the start was took these sheet names, the ones with all the data, and I just moved them, created a copy into a brand new workbook. And then I basically got a new workbook just with that set of data. And that was actually a fairly quick thing to do, right? Just move or copy them out. And then get data from file, from workbook. I just reference that workbook. And then when you run the transform data thing, you don't have to select the sheets independently. So I just wanted to show that I lost the benefit that Renier had of being able to pull the calendar list and the rooms list in the same query. I then went and made those each tables and pulled them in as individual tables into individual queries. But I just thought that was a slight nuance on the way that I pulled that data together, quickly. And I suppose for the full data list was actually slightly faster because I didn't have to filter out in Power Query, but then I lost the ability to use that same query to pull the other data sets. So, pros and cons, I suppose.
Yeah, really cool. That's how I would typically have done it as well, Jason. Is extracting them separately into separate Excel workbooks and bringing them across as 4 or 5 separate queries. Anyways, so for this bonus question 1, what is the average occupancy, rooms filled divided by rooms available for the Durban Mule for the 1st of May 2023, rounded down to the nearest percentage, for example, 82%. The trick there was if you round, and you could round down, so I said rounded down, so I probably have to use round down then, and for percentages we have to put it to 2 decimals. Because a percentage would in this case be 0 point something, right? So if you had gone to the full nearest value, your answer would have gone to 0, and sometimes you do that under pressure. So that's one catch. Other than that, it's just again the sum if divided by a sum if for me. Again, various ways of doing this. A pivot table is also quick and easy to do as well. So that's one method. And then I wanted to do the next 2 using formulas, and I wanted to make it a bit of a teaching game as well. Because this wasn't my initial attempt. This was my attempt if I had done it properly and if I had time to do it. So I wrote a let for this. Luckily, I didn't need a lambda, but you could have done it with a lambda as well. So let me just explain. So which day in January has the highest occupation, denoted as year, month, day. Okay. So if I go to this sheet, I just wanted to show like how I structured it. So in essence, all I did was it is actually very simple. It looks daunting, but it's very simple. So I said, give me Jan days, and basically I just want a sequence of days. I want 31 days because I know there's 31 days in January, and I want you to start at the 1st of January. Yes, you can actually do that. Excel automatically denotes it as a date. Date becomes a number, and it gives me a sequence of dates. What's nice about the let function as well is you can actually do this, right? And I've seen Dim do this a lot. He takes his answer when he's debugging. He takes his answer and it makes it something like out, and then he goes and he references out at the end to say, give me the answer for out. Okay. So what did I do there? I basically just said, name this, because the only thing that let does is it gives you the ability to name something, name a part of your calculation, and then reference it later. So basically, I said, okay, well, that's Jan days. So I can now reference Jan days there. So if I go Jan days, then it'll give me all the Jan days. So if I wanted to quickly debug my formula, I could go and break it up into its parts. So Jan days is cool. Okay, that works. Then I'm just going to say, okay, now give me the total per day. And again, there's multiple ways of doing this. I, in the end, did an H stack to structure it properly in my mind and in the formula. I did an H stack between January days and the sum if the occupancy date is that day, just return for me the occupancy. Okay, so basically I'm just saying sum if the occupancy number, if the occupancy date is one of those Jan days. Okay, so if I bring back total per day as my feedback or my output to the formula, I've got the days and each day's occupancy number summed up. Okay, so again, fairly simple, not actually that complex. And then all I did was in the end I said X lookup, and I know that my days aren't more than 999, so I'm saying X lookup 999. And basically, what do I want to look up? I want to look up with this you could have done an index as well, but I'm just going to say take the last column. So take the last column from that total. So that's my numbers, and that's my lookup value, and then my return value, my return array is the first column. So bring back the first column. And this -1 is just saying the match mode is exact or nearest or nearest. What is it called? Match mode.
Next smallest.
Next smallest, yes, next smaller item. And then if I bring back my output, gives me the 6th of Jan. So just wanted to show, like, it's not as complex as it looks. And if you use the let, if I hadn't used the let, it would have been unreadable and difficult to audit and difficult to actually figure out. But the nice thing about this let function is the ability to extract the various elements as I'm debugging to see, am I getting to the right answer? Check your answer. Because if I went back to total per day there, to output the total per day, I could quickly visually see, oh, this one is 303, this one is 302, the rest I don't really see other 300s. So my answer is the 6th of Jan. So I can debug my answer. And if I go back and I just took out Jan days, for instance, I can go and check, do I have days running from the 1st of January to the 31st of January? Yes. Okay. Next step. So that's how you can actually use your let function to debug for you and actually not have such a difficult formula, but actually get your answer. Doing a pivot table is much simpler, much faster. But I just wanted to show guys how to do this and how amazing this actually is. So when it comes to bonus 3,
in the spirit of the case here, I did a pivot table and it was really easy.
yeah. No, I mean if you went occupancy and you went not undo, redo. If you went to the occupancy and you went insert pivot table, you could just go and say, okay, what did we want? We wanted month. So let's go month name. So
yeah, I just
month
I
there.
I just put
month and date.
The date, and I put the month. I put the month in the filter. And just filtered for January. Yeah.
And we want the occupancy, eh?
And you want the occupancy, yeah, correct.
Yeah, there we go. There's the whole thing that took me 10 minutes to write initially. So, and then you just go and filter for January, and there you've got your answer, and then you can go sort if you wanted to, or you could just.
I actually did it. I just did a sum of the max, whatever, sum if max kind of thing. But yeah,
okay,
same thing.
What I sometimes do is this as well. You just go like conditional formatting, and then look for the greens, and like quickly visually see. Okay, there's my answer. So you could do that as well, or you could sort. I think you can go like that, sort from largest to smallest. There's your answer as well.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways to do it in a pivot. It's amazing. So then the other thing is for the final question. The final question was, which hotel has the highest revenue for Q3? If you had set up your data properly already, you had your answer. If you had your peak consideration there as well, again, very easy to do. And in essence, all I did was very much the same as the previous one. I think I've just just need to update my formula there. Yes, I need to just update that one. Because initially I didn't do the revenue one. But yeah, all I did here was very similar. I wanted to initially, and again, Bo and Dim probably will have a way to even simplify this even more, or even Craig Hatmaker. He's also a lambda genius and a let genius. But if you go and unpack this formula again, it's not that difficult. So over here, I've already sort of, instead of just ending off with index hotels match whatever, I ended up with, I called it out, and I just ended up sending out because now I can go and say, okay, firstly I did a hotels list. So that's all I did there was give me the unique of the name. Okay, so there's my unique list of hotels. Okay, so that's the first step to the first method to my madness. Then secondly, what I did was I wanted to bring back the revenues. So all I did there was I did a sum if. So exactly the same as the previous one. I just did a sum ifs to say where the occupancy sum up the occupancy revenue for me. That's the from my table, and where the hotel name is equal to that list of hotels, and the occupancy quarter is 3. So that's bringing back quarter 3 sales information for each hotel for me. And then I said, well, okay, give me the values only. So I'm just taking out the values only just to simplify my final formula. So values only is just stripping out the numbers. So it's just formatted poorly, but it's basically just stripping out the numbers on their own. And then I just said, okay, index for me now the hotels list, where you match the max of the values. Match that to the values only. So that's just going to return for me where it matched the maximum of those. I could have done an X lookup there as well, and return for me. Just want to see. Oh yeah, but this is just returning values only. So when I go out, it just brings back the hotel name. So again, a pivot table, much simpler. But I just wanted to show the case for let as well, which is pretty awesome. So if I'm building building a product, or I'm building an actual proper model that needs to be used and audited and re-audited and stuff, I'd rather build it like this, because then I don't have to dynamically update the pivot table, etc., etc. So if I wanted this as a metric, and I had to extract this metric on a live model that updates monthly or whatever, I would use this method. But again, to do that with a pivot table, very simple. Go pivot table, new worksheet. I want the hotel names there, and I want the quarter as a filter perhaps, or I could even make it a column. And then I could go and say revenue there. And then what I could do, so in this case, I could actually like properly structure it like that. In this case, I can then look at quarter 3, and basically see that Porcupine Ridge is my answer. Again, I can do it with a sort. So I could go sort. I think you just need to select the one, sort largest to smallest, and there's my answer. So yeah, various ways of doing it, but a pivot table is your simpler way and your faster way, I think. I think that's the story. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add, or but yeah, I like this case. I think the questions could have been structured better, but the whole purpose here was to force guys to dabble in Power Query and be like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. That's all I wanted. So, yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts from you, Steyn?
Well, no, I'll definitely go and practice Power Query and let and lambdas functions more, because they are quite useful, and I'm not the I'm not at the same skill level there that I'm at with the rest of Excel.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen that various times with a lot of professionals. Is a lot of people think they're good with Excel because they are good with certain elements, but a lot of very little people are like versatile enough to be able to do a bit of Power Query and VBA and maybe like the new Office scripts or whatever you call them, and be able to do like very complex formulas and lambdas and lets, because a lot of people typically solve the problem that they are faced with at work or in their careers, and it doesn't necessarily, like for me, I can work with charts and graphs and stuff in Excel, but I don't typically do it a lot, so it's not one of my strong suits. Where if you look at Minda Tracy, her My Excel Online, she does amazing things with Excel graphs and charts and stuff. It's things that blows my mind, but I don't need to do it typically. And I mean, we usually go to Power BI when we're doing visuals. We don't necessarily use Excel for that, but a lot of people use Excel for, and that's what makes it so powerful. It's so versatile. It's amazing. Yeah. So, any closing thoughts from you, Jason?
No, great case, thanks, Renier, and a great sort of change in pace and tone for the particular cases that we've been doing in the competition. And yeah, fully agree with what you said. I think versatility, being a bit of a jack of all trades, is a great sort of thing to pursue for Excel in general.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks again for your time, guys, and have a lovely day. Hope you have a good Saturday. Hope there's rugby in your day. There will be in mine. I'll probably try and watch as many games as I can. Had a big upset last night, so yeah, very, very cool. I'm pumped for the rest of the World Cup. But anyways, that's not Excel related. So have a good day, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.